Stories don't start Stories do not start when life is going well. They start when something walks in and says, "Hey, remember those plans?" That's adorable. Today we're going to talk about the inciting incident, the single event that forces a character to leave their old life behind. It's one of the most important moments in storytelling, and whether you're writing a novel, a screenplay, working on a film, or just trying to figure out why your life may be a little bit more chaotic, understanding it changes how you see every story, including your own. This part of storytelling is really what kicked off the whole point of this YouTube channel to begin with. Later in the video, I'm going to go into detail about what was the catalyst that started for me to make character method in the first place. And it all started with an inciting incident. So, the inciting incident is a pivotal plot event in a story that writers can use, or screenwriters or storytellers can use, to take a protagonist and take their normal life and launch them into a main conflict of the story. It usually occurs early in a narrative or in a story. This event forces the main character out of their comfort zones and sets the stakes and the overarching narrative of the actual story itself. Without an inciting incident, the story can become bland, repetitive. No, there's nothing that propels the plot forward. Examples of very popular inciting incidences in popular media is in the Hunger Games. Primrose Everdeen's name is drawn in the reaping, which means that she now has to, which basically forces Katniss to have to volunteer. Harry Potter receives his letter to go to Hogwarts. That is the inciting incident that drives the plot forward, and then you start to realize that there's magic in life. The Matrix, Neo decides that he's not going to take the blue pill. He takes the red pill to discover the true nature of his reality. This event, the inciting incident, is an event that propels the plot forward. It's usually a disruption to the status quo, and so there's a clear before and after this event. So before is what their normal life is. The after is the adventure or conflict. It usually encourages urgency because it demands a response. So if an event happens, like somebody dies, like in an Agatha Christie novel, a lot of times like it's prompted by somebody dying, which causes urgency because it's a serious thing. It requires a response. And it usually leaves the protagonist with an obstacle that they can no longer ignore. So say in an Agatha Christie novel, somebody's friends with that person, then they die. They can't just ignore that their best friend died. That would just be a weird novel. It also shows what the character has to gain or lose. So if Harry Potter doesn't decide to go to Hogwarts, he loses out on learning about magic altogether, and he's stuck in a home with abusive his adoptive family, his aunt and uncle. And then it also kind of shows the scale of the actual journey. So whether that be through a growth or self-development, it establishes the stakes. So like when the wizard shows up in the Hobbit, Gandalf, and he's telling them about like, oh, we need you to take the ring to Mount Doom or whatever. It shows like, oh, this is like really serious. This is life. This is like universe, or the world is going to end if this doesn't happen. And then it's usually the catalyst for change. So if people get comfortable, they get into a state of equilibrium, and then an exciting incident happens, and that's what actually causes us in real life and in stories to change. To whether that be to take the quest in the Wheel of Time, or to take the quest to walk to Mount Doom. It's something that everything is basically the catalyst for that character to not be the same person they were at the beginning of their story. As I hinted at earlier in the video, my inciting incident is the death of my chosen mother. So life doesn't usually hand you change in neat, manageable doses. It usually will, a lot of times, dump it all on you all at once. Like a tidal wave, waiting to see if you'll sink, swim, or learn to ride the swell. For me, the wave hit all at once in a very, very few chaotic weeks back in November. It started with a loss that cracked my world wide open. Dawn was my chosen mother. She's somebody that I looked up to, that I was inspired by every waking moment of my life. And we hadn't spent a lot of time the past 2 years talking to each other because she had become very, very unwell. And she went into a nursing home in the United Kingdom. And I kind of wrote it off like, oh, she's there now. She's going to get better. And then she ended up ultimately not getting better. And if you ever want to know what absolute freedom looks like, you should have met her. She just you just had to watch her when she was near the ocean. Her favorite thing in the whole world was the ocean. So you had to just watch her near the ocean, and you would know that she was the kindest, free-spirited, and deep. And she just deeply loved people, but she deeply loved being near the waves, being near the salt water. And if she wasn't breathing in salt air, she was gliding down the boardwalk in her rollerblades, either laughing, completely present, loving the trail of warmth. She was loving, and she left a trail of warmth wherever she went. She didn't just live life, she flowed with it. And then she was gone. I found out about it back in November as soon as I got home from work. I walked in through the door, and my wife was sitting on the stairs. And the moment that I walked in, I knew something was wrong. She she basically told me at that moment, like, hey, Mama Dawn is gone. And I was like, what are you talking about? What does that mean? It's like, your mother has died. She passed away this afternoon, and I was too afraid to message you over the phone. So for the last hour, I've been sitting on the stairs waiting to tell you, and I was waiting for you to get home. Losing her left a quiet void in my chest, but the world doesn't really pause for grief, to be honest. And I looked at my legacy, the legacy of my chosen mother, and the legacy that she left behind. She didn't spend her time trying to control the ocean. She swam in it. She didn't try to control the wind. She let it push her forward on her rollerblades. She understood the fundamental truth that I had completely forgotten. That true strength isn't about gripping tighter. It's about knowing when to let go. And I still struggle. I still have moments where I break up in tear when I watch a movie talking about grief or loss. And right when I was trying to process this devastating loss, I stepped into a brand new role as a financial manager. As kind of, this is like the inciting incident. This is what started to cause me to start this channel in the first place. And suddenly my days were filled with trying to deal with numbers, people's paychecks, spreadsheets. And finance, your entire job is about one thing: control and rules. You're paid to analyze variables, mitigate risk, protect customer, try to predict customers' behavior, and keep everything correct and balanced. I was pouring all my energy into trying to control every cent, every new employee, everything, every meeting. As if the grief of a demanding new career wasn't enough, I was also preparing for my next karate test. If you ever trained martial arts, you would know that it isn't just a physical exam. It's a psychological pressure cooker. You're exhausted, your muscles are screaming, and you're being watched by judges who are watching your every move to see if you have the control, the stance, that if there's any hesitation in any of your strikes. And so there I was, in my head, trying to manage the overwhelming grief, the loss of my mother. At my desk, I was trying to control millions of dollars in corporate expectations. On the mat, I was trying to force my body into this perfect, flawless execution. I was tightly wound, holding my breath, desperately trying to grip every single aspect of my life. I thought if I worked harder, planned better, and forced my way into the universe, I could keep it all from falling apart. So the takeaway isn't that this is just my story. I'm telling you this because right now you might be drowning in your own perfect storm. Maybe you didn't lose your mother, start a new finance job, or at least test for a belt this week. But I bet everything you have, that you're carrying, that everything that you are carrying is a very heavy combination. Because like I said, life doesn't just give you things in manageable doses. It comes as a monsoon. Maybe you're grieving a dream that didn't pan out while trying to hold down a job that drains you, while keeping up appearances for everybody. You're walking around with your shoulders tense, your jaws clenched, desperately trying to micromanage a universe that refuses to be managed. So let me ask you the question that changed my life. What are you fighting so hard to control right now that simply is not yours to control? We do this because control feels like safety. We think that if we worry enough, analyze enough, force enough, we can protect ourselves from pain. But we're all actually doing is exhausting ourselves before the battle even begins. In finance, we call that a bad return on investment. You're pouring 100% of your energy into a variable where you have zero chance of influence. That's a losing game. So my call of action for you is if you stop wasting your energy on things that you can't control, you could what could you actually accomplish with all that freed up power? Subscribe, like, and comment for more weekly reminders of how to stop forcing things and to just start living your most authentic life. Let's do this together. And until next time, we Justers know what to do. If you want more of this content, please like, comment, and subscribe to help this channel out and continue to be silly out there.